everybody, welcome to Everything Bagel. I'm Alex Kehaya, joined by my co-host Bidhan Roy, founder of Bagel. And today we're talking about what happened at ETHDenver last week in the OpenAGI Summit, some of the key takeaways, and how blockchain is making AI more open and accessible. And then we're also going to dive into like the latest on community-driven model training and why monetizable open source AI is essential for the future of sustainable AI development. So yeah, with that, Bidhan, what happened in ETHDenver?
Hey everybody, as Alex mentioned, Bidhan here. ETHDenver was great. A lot of builders, so which is always great. Even though, the blockchain kind of the trading market was going through ups and downs, the builders are never, feeling down. They're always enthusiastic. They're always creating new things. So that's the best part about being a builder. You're not affected by whatever the market side of the sentiment is going on. So for us, it was great. We, the Bagel team, hosted an event, which was amazing. We had space for about 100 people. We hosted a breakfast event, very small, or at least it was supposed to be really small. But I think close to 300 people showed up in that event, and it was crazy. Like the whole location filled up. So much interest in decentralized AI, especially the monetizable open source AI, the community that we're building, which is really gratifying to see how this community is growing day by day, how more and more people getting to know about us and how more and more people getting excited about us at the same time. So that was one of the highlights for sure. And there were a lot of conversations around decentralized AI, which is always interesting to be part of, and share the thoughts from the perspective of monetization, like how we can use cryptography and blockchain technologies to allow for monetization of open source AI and how that contributes to the greater good of the industry. So in short, it was great. A lot of building, a lot of interesting conversations.
I'm really curious what you picked up on it from like the pulse of the AI, open source AI movement at ETHDenver. Like I heard there were just tons of events, AI related events, lots of people building different like AI related tools and things like that. And I'm just curious, if I had gone, I would have loved to just picked up, what are the different things that are building and where do they fit in, kind of getting a holistic understanding of that ecosystem and the different components and how that kind of relates to Bagel. But do you have like kind of any new insights or a feeling after coming back from that? Like what are the different things that are being worked on that might be kind of important or interesting?
I mean, definitely the collaborative model building is something really interesting in the space right now. And different people have different approaches to that as well. So which is really interesting to hear how people are taking a stab at solving the problem. But at the same time, what we saw, or what I personally saw, that most of the solutions were good enough, but there were a lot of, like a hand-holding and centralization component of it. Like even though these solutions are incentivizing a lot of people to come together and collaboratively build a model, even then, there's always a centralized part where a company is kind of looking at all of these contributions and kind of checking their quality centrally and making sure those models do what they're supposed to do. Which is not great. It's not a great design experience. It's not a great experience from the company side as well, because then the models cannot really scale beyond the limits of a centralized company still, right? And one of the biggest reasons behind that is those solutions were lacking verifiability in their design. So what they were doing is that they do not incorporate any kind of verifiability like let alone ZK and whatnot. And that adds the overhead to the company who are controlling the whole thing centrally to kind of verify all of the contributions and benchmark them and incorporate them into their system. And that's where we kind of stand out in our approach. We have verifiability as a core component of the protocol. that allow the Bagel protocol to crowdsource all of those contributions from thousands, if not millions of people, get all of this contribution together and allow them to verify permissionlessly. And that kind of allow you to scale the system beyond the capability of a single system.
You were saying like where you guys fit in, where Bagel fits in here, because I was asking about the pulse of on the street at ETHDenver, and like everybody's trying to figure out how to do this like community-driven AI model development, but they're all lacking the ability to prove. And that's what ZK LoRa solves, right?
Exactly. Yeah. They're basically like, if you want to do things in a crowdsourced way, you also want to do the verification in the crowdsourced way, right?
Yeah.
Most of the solutions that are trying to do that today, like they are only crowdsourcing some contributions from the community, but they still kind of verify by hand centrally how these contributions are attaching to the rest of the ecosystem. And that does not work, right? And that's why this is really important to solve the problem of verifiability in this collaborative model training, something we are doing with ZK LoRa, something we have been able to achieve, which has never been done before.
Yeah, so this is like a common problem that you're seeing across all these other teams that are trying to build community-driven AI models that are developed by community.
Yeah, like they're developed by community, but they're still kind of held back by the limits of the centralized company, which is kind of creating the effort because they have to handhold all of the contributions by their through
you
their
don't
employees.
have to do that though if you can verify the improvements of every time there's a tree.
Exactly.
So I have a somewhat related question, and we're going to get Luca Ficini on. I reached out to him. He's the president of Sage Bionetworks. I think I told you about them last time we talked. And they have this platform with thousands of machine learning people on it that are like using this open data that's provided by all these research institutions to like train models or biomedical research. But one of the big challenges is this data is in like tar-z files, and it's not really like consumable for machine learning. You have to do something with that data and to like format it. And I'm wondering if this is also a similar problem for like, if you're going to do community driven LM development, you need to verify the contributions by how much it's improved. That's how ZK LoRa works. But you also need to be able to like get the data. And sometimes like if you got petabytes of research data, right, that needs to be reformatted, really the best way to do that is the community to do it in my head. So how would that happen? How do you do that? I don't know if that's like a common problem as well, or what you would think about that, but I'm just curious to pick your brain about it. It's been something I wanted to talk to you about. And we'll talk to Luca about it when he comes on the show, but I just want to hear your thoughts.
No, we have seen this problem too. Like one of the biggest issues with the stack where, data is contributed is that it's really hard to attribute value to contributors.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean is that, like as an industry, we kind of over-index on private data. Like people are going to provide and contribute private data and they're going to make more money. And the public data is not going to make money. Like we kind of have that bias as an industry. But that's actually not further from the truth. Could not be further from the truth. Because we have seen on our system, initially when we started with the data contribution layer, is that people were contributing data which were private and proprietary, but they were not making much money from it. Why? Because that data needs to go through a lot of processes to be consumed by a machine learning model during training. And those processes are actually really valuable. So what we saw instead is a lot of contributors coming in with totally public data, but their data was structured and labeled really well, and they were able to make more money, monetize more than the private or proprietary data people whose data were not structured well enough. So the value accrual, a lot of the value accrual happens during the structuring of the data, right? And it's really hard to attribute value to that, right? Because how can we measure how much one should get? Like, let's say if a data set made like $10, how do you divide that? Like how much should go to the person who provided the data? How much should go to the person who cleaned the data? How much should go to the person who labeled the data? Like there are a lot of like different areas, right? And that's where we faced a lot of problems, and we explored this problem space a lot. And finally, we have been able to come up with a solution where we can figure out how to deterministically attribute value to open contributions, which wasn't possible before. Like that's probably one of the reasons behind a lot of these open contribution networks not achieving PMF previously. I'm not going to name them, but all of us know this data networks. All of us know this a lot of compute networks as well. And that's also one of the differentiators that we had within our property.
I think it's important to talk about this because I think, you guys inventing ZK LoRa and the ability to now attribute and quantify contributions that then they can get compensation for enables people to build businesses around the data. So like you need a reason to like format that data appropriately. There has to be, you got to pay people to do that, right? Like that's the only, you got to take the data through these processes, which cost money, right? And so the answer is that no, you can't really monetize that specific part of the process, but you can monetize the end product, which is the LLM that uses that data. And because now you have a way of securely in a private manner, like controlling that process, which you didn't have before, there's now a sustainable reason. And so I think my hypothesis is that where there are valuable data sets, there will be products built around them that require them to be formatted in a certain way. And those products will be built on things like Bagel Network. I think of like the LLM as the product, and then there's apps that consume that data that like, doctors can use for like uploading, images that then diagnose people with cancer faster because they have all that structured data from like the research that they fed to train the LLM. Like that's how I think this will play out, based on what you just told me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But I think like if you go a little bit deeper in the technical level, like how this works is that you cannot actually keep the data in the data format to be able to attribute value to it. What we do, for example, is you take a data and you actually convert it to some modular adapter. You can think of it like small Lego pieces, which you can attach on top of a massive model. And all of a sudden that model becomes capable of doing new things, which it couldn't do before, right? So you convert the data to model parameters, and all of a sudden those parameters are something you can deterministically measure and determine how much value they're creating. They're like things to do, like you can do benchmarks and stuff, which you cannot do directly on top of data, right? So the form factor of it needs to be different. Yes, data is valuable, but whenever you're contributing data, whenever you're measuring the impact of the data, you actually have to figure out what form factor they're represented in so that can be used to measure their impact. So that is something really interesting here.
And does ZK LoRa already kind of solve for that? Or are we talking about something different that needs to be built?
That's the first step. But when I talk about this modular parameter adapters, like that's what LoRa is. Yeah, okay. Like that's what a LoRa is, like low-rank adaptation of large language models. And those are basically small parameters. So what you do is like you have some data or whatever, you use that to create your own LoRa, and then you can do a lot of measurement on top of that. That's what we invented, and a lot of people are copying it already. So which means this is becoming successful.
And it's great, especially if they start contributing to it and it's open source. So it makes you guys stronger too.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious, just like on the bakery side of things, do you have an update there on like the traction and how things are going? And then I'd really like to hear, we talked a little bit about this last time, but what is like the latest, most exciting thing you think you're seeing get built there?
A lot of these are under the wraps, even the information like traction information and stuff that we're talking about. But we have onboarded a lot of users. So that's just what I want to say, that we have onboarded a massive community of developers within the first 2 months of being live, which is crazy. Like the numbers we're seeing is probably at the levels we haven't seen in any crypto AI product before. So it's that level. Exact numbers are definitely under the wraps, and those developers are contributing, they're monetizing, they're making money, and in return we are making money. So the flywheel is going and everything is blowing up. That's all I have to say. And we have a lot of plans of thank you. And we have a lot of plans of releasing models which are state of the art, like best in the world. So working on that, we will come out with a bunch of things there. We will open source it for the community so that they can contribute to it as well. So a lot of things are happening. It's busy time at the Bagel office.
Yeah. A lot of growth. And with a really small team, we've talked about that a lot. So you guys hosted this thing called the Builders Breakfast and at ETHDenver. What was the vibe like there? Did you get anything interesting, conversations or like unexpected things that you learned?
Something unexpected that I learned is that our community is way bigger than I thought. So many people showed up. So I've been to a bunch of side events, right? That's what happens at these conferences, is that there are hundreds of side events every day and people go to those. And when you go to a single one, sometimes there are like no people inside, like it's empty. People are doing panels, like no one is sitting on the chairs to attend panels. Ghost Town, yeah. Which was
our ran hackathon that I went to in New York like a year ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. It's true.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to name.
Yeah,
people take names.
They're going to be hating on me on Twitter later. Sorry.
But the bagel community was actually on the other side of the equation. We rented an event space, which was for probably 100 people, that I think more than 300 people showed up to that event. And we are such a small team, and the impact we're having within the community, the amount of mindshare we have, I knew that we have a lot of brand recognition within the space, but I did not know the magnitude of it, which is actually way higher than I expected. So that was a pleasant surprise for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. Super bullish, definitely. Super bullish. And like under the radar though still, which is kind of funny when you think about it. Like the community is big, but it's still so early in this like arena of open intelligence, like this whole general area. It does feel a lot like, to me, like early days of Solana. It has that feeling, the
fingers crossed. We're gonna get there. We are also builders and engineers, built by engineers, right?
Yeah.
So definitely there are some similarities there. We're also pragmatic with our solutions. We're also breaking barriers in terms of what's possible on the infra level. So a lot of things up there. That's all I can say. Fingers crossed. Yeah. We'll get there.
Yeah. So.
But how come you were not able to make it?
Oh man, 3 kids, 2 jobs. Just couldn't pull it off. I forgot what we had. We had something with school. With my daughter's school that day, like literally, like in the middle of the week, and I just couldn't pull it off. I've been to a lot of these conferences like many times. I've been to ETHDenver is one of my favorites. But yeah, at my stage in life where I'm at, I can't pull off too much travel. It's really strategic. I'm gonna go to New York for this RWA institutional summit that the Solana Foundation's hosting in middle, like next week or the week after next. And then the Accelerate conference that Solana's doing, which we should get you at in May. So
yeah, I'd love to attend.
That one's a high leverage one, I think, where there's going to be just a lot of solid teams and people. It's good networking, and it'll be a lot of fun. The Solana conferences are always just like a blast. So yeah, we should definitely go there. Yeah, I'm just trying to think about like what.
What else? 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 What else
What are you like coming out of ETHDenver and that breakfast? What's the most exciting thing? Like, what are you like most excited about? What are you most fired up about?
I cannot talk about it. That's the thing. Like, I'm really fired about a bunch of things.
I can't wait till you can talk about it with me on the show, because I'm like, I know it's coming. I don't know what it is. So anybody wondering if I have the alpha, I don't. He hasn't even.
Like, it's actually bigger of a bang than the one you saw with ZK LoRa, for example. It's like it's the first ever verifiable model training that has ever been invented, and the community went crazy about it. And what's coming after is even bigger. Like, it's gonna get bigger and better every time we release something from now. So, and it's actually something not just within the crypto industry, within the AI industry too. Like, first ever and best ever kind of thing that we're bringing out. Which I'm super excited about, of course, working towards that. The team is working really hard. That's all I have to say. Like, can't wait.
Well, here's something maybe we can talk about a little bit more. And it's interesting because one of the things I was just talking to Danny O'Brien from Filecoin. I had him on the show literally right before this. And I've been really nerding out on The Cathedral and the Bazaar, which is a book in a series of essays. Yeah. And it's about the early like hacker movement and open source and free software and where it came from. And, you know, this idea that like I live by it through ABK Labs, my other company, is like just build together. If open source software is the purest form of innovation, and if you just build open source software together, you will get to where we're going. Like, we will get to open intelligence if we just build open source software together. And so with ZK LoRa, which a lot of other teams are starting to use, like, that's like a really meaningful contribution from Bagel. But how are you thinking about, because some of these teams, we've talked about it before, like they're using it and they're not necessarily crediting you guys maybe. How do we like fix that problem so that people are just building things together again with this thing? Like, you guys just shipped it and that's the right thing to do. But, you know, my initial instinct was to go to war. You remember how pissed off I was about it? But now I'm kind of like thinking like, maybe the better thing is to really live that just build together ethos and just like say like, okay, what can we do to like to suck them in to contributing to it versus like getting all emotional about like they didn't credit properly, you know?
I mean, a lot of these stuff depend on principles too. And I just really think a lot of the actors that we are thinking about are not aligned in principle. Like, they are just in the extraction mode. So they're not in the contribution mode to the community. So it doesn't matter what we do, they're not going to change. And that will probably also make it hard for a team like ours to align with them in principles, because we are not in extraction mode at all. Like, you saw the meme recently, it's like, I guess some meme, I don't want to name them, but the famous Libra meme coin guy posted on a TG chat, like, we're gonna max extract on this one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the parties we are mentioning here, whose name we're not taking, but we know who they are, they're in the extraction mode, and I don't think it's ever gonna change. So they'll continue.
I 100%, you know, 100% agree with you. I think I was being like a little altruistic when I thought about, like, I brought that idea up, but I think, you know, one thing I'm driven by is like surrounding myself with people who are like true believers. And I know I sound like a cult leader here, but I don't give a fuck, right? Like, who do I want to spend my days with? Like, there's a reason I like doing this show with you, because we are aligned, like fully aligned on like building something of value for the world, like a legacy. Like, yes, we're both trying to build businesses and make money, but that's not why I get out of bed in the morning every day. I get out of bed because of like the pure reason that I want to leave a legacy to the world that is this technology. And my role in it is not as an engineer; it's a different role, right? But I have a role to play, like distribution and like funding for engineers, like finding people to build this stuff. And like trying to point them in a direction that's sustainable. And you're both. You're like an engineer and you're an entrepreneur, which is pretty cool. But I agree with you. Yeah, it's about values and attracting the right people. And I think it's paying, you know, the proof is in the pudding. Like, look at the community that showed up for that builders breakfast, like 300 people. Yeah. That didn't happen for no reason, right? They are also believing in this. And that is like, I mean, that makes the hair stand up on my arm. It's super inspiring. Super inspiring.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what we're building as well, right? You allow a big group of people who are excited about contribution, not extraction, but you give them a business model where they can, which they can live off of, right? They can contribute to the open ecosystem, but they can also make money off of it. So the virtuous flywheel keeps going, and then the real builders are the ones who are getting paid instead of the extractors who are copying and, then claiming innovations of others as their own. And that's what we want to continue to do, is to build for the contributors, not the extractors, and empower them by giving them the collaboration tools.
I'm like imagining this meme from World War II of like, we want you. I forget what's that lady's name? The woman, and she's like pointing it and like trying to recruit people to.
Oh, yeah. I think it was not a lady. It was like the Uncle Sam character, the president of United States kind of thing.
Yeah, there is an Uncle Sam one. There's Uncle Sam, but isn't there a woman version?
But I get what you're saying.
I was trying to look it up. Oh, that's We Can Do It is the woman one with like where she's like got a bicep like this. But anyway,
okay.
I just like, recruiting those kinds of people, and like really beating that drumbeat around. This is about contribution, and yeah, there's a way you can make money by being a contributor to the public good, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Well, so I think
we are aligned on that, by the way, in principle. Like that's why we do this together. And I guess I want to mention to the audience that we are also open to working with anyone else who align with the principle, of course. But again, like going back to the earlier point I made, like I don't think people who do not align in principles they're not going to be the ones who will be contributing to the ecosystem, and it's actually zero-sum game for them always, right?
Yeah, they'll end up losing at some point in life. And I think if you look at like I really believe that. I really believe karma's a bitch, and it doesn't end well. Like, I think, one thing that strikes me too about this, and this is a big reason why you're able to have this partnership that you guys locked in early on with Filecoin, because they are the culture of that community was born of this, right? Like,
yep.
So why they have this guy, Danny O'Brien, as a senior fellow there is because he's like, literally his job is to evangelize this whole idea of being a contributor to open source software in their community, as like sort of a steward of that idea. And I've become more and more fascinated with, and that like the history there, like where this all comes from back in like the 70s and 80s, and wanting to evangelize that more from the work that I do, because I feel like it's important for people to like there are many people who I think might not, who are like from a younger generation, maybe even younger than you and me, that might not yet realize that that's what they're contributing to, that there's like there is some lore here, there's a history here of people building open source software just because they thought it was the right thing to do. Right. And that there's a unique time in history now where you can be a contributor in that way with those morals and those ethics and still make money. Didn't used to be that way. Right. For decades, these people were just like lone warriors, like barely scraping by, and now it doesn't have to be that way because of these new systems that we're building and like the way we're trying to fix the internet,
exactly.
Which I think is fascinating. And so, yeah,
couldn't be more aligned with that.
I hope people listening to us in this show and the conversations we have kind of get that message, and start realizing that, oh, I can participate. And I hope they know from me is like, you don't have to be an engineer to participate. There's lots of things you can do to help the people who are writing the code. They need your help as much as we need them writing that software,
exactly.
Because it takes a lot more than just code to build, useful tools, and distribute them.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more, Alex. I'm glad that we are aligned on that.
So, with that, like, what else have we not talked about that you might have wanted to cover since the last time we had a show together?
What else? No, next time we'll have more things to share. So for today, I wanna keep my mouth shut for a bit.
All right.
But
My anticipation
now
is this.
you'll be able to talk about more.
It sounds good. Well, thanks for coming on again today. And yeah, always love having you on and doing this segment with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.